In this video, I'm going to cover why browser resizing happens, and what the implications of that are. I've got a guy that uses my plugin, has for a long time, and he's like, what I need to understand is why browser resizing takes place at all. Or in other words, why doesn't WordPress do this for us? And what he said in his question or post is that his understanding of what should happen is this: when a device loads your page, WordPress dynamically serves the image closest in size to the container of that image. If the served image is not quite the right size, then the web browser resizes the image. And that's kind of like, well, duh, that's what should happen, right? WordPress should, give us something close,
Mhm.
and then if the browser has to do some resizing, okay. But what really happens is that WordPress tries, and themes don't make life any easier for them, and you end up with something that's not very ideal unless you're really careful with what we talked about last week in picking the right sized version of your image, and that being, like the large size, the medium, the thumbnail, all those ones that WordPress generates for you. So it's trying to do some of those things, but it needs some help a lot of times. And so we'll look at this post that I did last week, and I've tweaked it a little bit since then to demonstrate some of these things. So, there's a lot of pictures on here, that one, this one, lots of monkeys, and then that one. And I don't know how well you can tell, but some of these are blurry, some of them are not, and I'll talk about why in a second. But this top one, I'm doing things kind of wrong on purpose because it's hard in the default WordPress setup to do things wrong. But with certain themes, certain plugins, sometimes you don't even have a choice. They don't even give you these image sizing options. They just use the full size, and then crap, what do you do then? And so we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But in this particular case, I just left this one the full size, so we know that's going to be way too big, way bigger than it should be. And then I've got another one that is actually a small image. It's just a few hundred pixels, and I told it to be a wide width image in WordPress, so I used that alignment. So that's just kind of what's going on under the hood. And so let's go and look at what's actually going to display on the page. So this first one, as always, I'll right click on them, go to inspect, so we can see what the blazes the browser is actually doing under the hood. And you can see here that because of the size of the image, it's 4,000 pixels wide and 2,200 tall. And so WordPress has put that in there. And if we hover over the source or the source set area of this, it'll tell us which particular image is being used. So WordPress, again, it's trying. So it gave the browser like 7 or 8 different sizes to choose from. And it also told it, because I told it to do the full size instead of large or medium or something useful like that, it said, well, anything up to 4,000 pixels in screen size, use whatever image fits in that screen. So if we had a 4,000 pixel screen, it would use the full size original. Well, we don't. We have what, like a 1,600 wide, something like that. Um, Otherwise, just use something that's 4,000 pixels. So that's really not great for anything. Um, and so again, if we hover over this, we see that the box that it's in is 580 pixels or dots, however you want to look at it, by 326 tall. And the image it chose as the best fit was 2,000 by 1,100. Now we have to give a little bit of credit here because it's doubling what normally would be used on a normal computer because I'm on a Retina enabled Mac, which means all the images on my screen are twice as dense as they would be on a normal computer. There's twice as many pixels on my screen as a normal computer would have. So it's going to use a little bit bigger image just to make it look nice and crystal clear. And it looks nice and crystal clear. I tell you what, it looks pretty. But this last one, there's no fixing that. It's a really small image, and I told it to put it in a container that's way too big. And we can see how big that container is. It's 1200 pixels wide by 800 pixels tall, and my image is only 200 pixels wide. So there's two types of scaling that a browser will do when an image isn't the size it ought to be. In the first case, like this one, this is called downscaling. So an image that has way more dots in it than what this box can hold is going to be downscaled. An image that is smaller than the box that it's been put in will be upscaled, and the result, as always, looks really, really gross. That's really lovely fruit, I'm sure, and produce, but you know, at that size, it looks bad. So if you see an image that's doing that sort of pixelation, that's the most likely reason, is that you've just used an image that isn't big enough or doesn't have enough pixels, is the way of looking at it. So we would need at least a 1200 pixel image to fill this space. But that's not the one that I want to focus on as much. The other one, because what I always look at is the performance impact of it. And so this particular image, let's get back over to that one. So again, why is WordPress doing this? Because we told it that it should use a 4000 pixel image in this page, and that's what it tried to do. The fallback is use the biggest image that will fit in this screen, which is rather wide, 12 something, 12 to 1300. And because I'm on a Retina screen, that's almost 2000, or it's like 2500 pixels, 2600, something like that. Here's why that matters so much. Because you might think, well, so what? It's smushing it down. It still looks pretty, right? So this particular one, we can see that 580 would fit into, 2000 more than 3 times, but we'll just say 3 for now. And 326 would easily fit into 1152 3 times. And so we go, oh, well, our image is 3 times bigger than it needs to be. But that would be forgetting our high school geometry lessons, which tell us that a picture is a 2-dimensional object. So 3 times 3, this image is at least 9 times bigger than it needs to be. And now I'm going to take us over to the network tab so we can see how big it really is. And I'm going to have to make this a little bigger and refresh. And this particular image is 570 kilobytes. And you might go, well, what's that mean? That means it's really big. Half a megabyte for an image is way too big, especially for an image that's only this wide. That's gonna not be so slow on my connection because I've got speed, but if you're, got visitors visiting on a mobile phone, and heaven forbid on a mobile connection, and you will, and you do, then that 570 kilobyte image is going to be painful. So what size could it be? And for this, I'm going to use some of the features of our plugin. Just to give you an example of what it should look like. Save the changes. So 570 is what it shouldn't be, and what it should be is 155K. And that actually seems a little bit large. Oh, I know why it's larger. That's because I'm on a Retina screen. I keep forgetting that. So it's double the size that it normally would have been on my desktop. On my desktop, it's coming in with like a 43 or no, it's a 44 kilobyte image instead of the 500. So yeah, 155 versus 570 kilobytes, that's a pretty big savings. And that's just scaling it down and applying some decent compression. So that's the difference that you're seeing. So roughly 4 times too big, or if you're on a non-retina screen, 8 to 9 times. On my desktop, it was 12 times too big. So that's on a 1080p screen. So that's upscaling, downscaling, why it's bad. So let's talk about one of the options for addressing this. Of course, the easiest sometimes is just to go back in and say, well, you know, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have used the full size image. So let's go and use the large one. And then, usually that will take care of it.